Hello everyone, and welcome back to The Long Night. In this episode, I am going to narrate a series of curious sightings reports made by a man named Sam Keown in 2016. Sam's reports stand out compared to others due to the strange nature of the events he experienced. So, relax, grab a warm drink and a snack and settle in by the fire to enjoy this creepy yet comfy story. Now, the second case I'm going to read out to you occurred in October of 2016 near Gungahlin, Victoria, and additionally in October or November 2016 near Chinchilla in the state of Queensland, Australia. After experiencing Yowie encounters in nearly two widely separated locations within the space of just 3 weeks, 29-year-old Sam Keown contacted the Australian Yowie Research Institute on the 8th of November 2016. He was interviewed by Paul Cropper on the 10th of November 2016 and by Tony Healy on the 14th of January 2018. All Yowie reports are, almost by definition, strange, but some are so odd that they can only be categorized as high strangeness cases. Sam's experience falls into that category. Sam's first sighting occurred in October 2016 near Gungahlin, Victoria. The first incident occurred about 30 kilometres south of the New South Wales Victorian border on a stretch of Bonang Road that cuts between the Snowy River National Park and Arindra National Park, which is an extremely wild and mountainous area. The nearest settlement, Gungahlin, is about 10 kilometres to the south. I'm going to read out to you Sam's narration of his sighting. I'm a timber cutter and machinery operator. I work between Victoria, New South Wales, and Queensland. It was about 10 o'clock at night. I was driving south towards Orbost. It's a dirt road, pretty windy. I've got a Toyota Hilux Ute, which is an Australian term for a pickup truck for our American viewers, with a bar light on the front. I had my high beams on, and I saw something up in the bush on the embankment to my right. Then it ran across in front of me and looked at me, and kept running to the left-hand side and down a bank. I only missed it by probably 1 metre. It would have been about 10 feet tall. I had to crouch my head down and look up to see its head. Really, really broad shoulders and chest. I'm nearly 6'4" and weigh about 110 kilos. I'd say this thing was about 200 kilos, maybe even more. It was hairy, a light reddish-brown colour. Long, shaggy-looking hair, really long arms, and from what I could see, the hands were huge, massive. I had the feeling that it looked startled. It looked kind of like a humanoid. The face was almost like a really deformed, out-of-shape human sort of face, and the head from the forehead up went into kind of a conical shape. The skin on its face looked tanned, not really dark, but like someone who's worked in the sun for about 30 years. Really big eyes. It must have been the reflection from the lights. They were sort of orangey looking. An orangey yellow colour. I didn't see any teeth. I had the window down. There was this horrible, horrible smell, almost like a rotten egg gas, like sulphur. The air was just rich with the smell. It was just unbelievable. I pulled up in the middle of the road about 50 metres further on. I couldn't believe what I'd just seen. I sat there trying to find where exactly I was on my phone GPS. And then I've got bright LED lights on the back of my ute, in the rearview mirror. I saw this thing running back up, out of the bush and onto the road. It was groaning and grunting, real loud. It looked angry and was running full pelt towards me. So I put the car into gear and my foot to the floor, and this thing kept up with me. I could hear it grunting and snorting. When I reached about 80 kilometers an hour, I finally lost it. And at that point, it let out this almighty sort of screech, almost like the screech of a cockatoo, but crossed with a roar, and extremely loud. I Can't think of anything that could come close to it. And then I thought instantaneously, death. And shit, mate, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. The whole thing lasted probably no more than a minute and a half. Sam's second sighting, which occurred in October or early November 2016 near Chinchilla, Queensland, coincidentally only about 3 weeks after his first. This was about 3 weeks after my first encounter. It was about 7:30 at night. I was on a dirt road near the Barracuda State Forest, roughly between Miles and Chinchilla, driving quite fast, about 70 or 80 kilometers an hour. I had my high beams on, and something walked out on all fours from the left, about 50 meters ahead. I thought at first it might have been a pig. I beeped the horn, and it looked quite startled and stood up and looked at me. Everything happened really fast. It was on the verge, but then started walking out into the middle of the road, moving like a person. I could not avoid it, and I clipped it with the left-hand side of my bull bar, and it fell off back into the bush, making some sort of screeching, roaring noise, as the other one had, quite loud. I felt it through the closed passenger side window. I could feel the vibration of it through the car. I went to jump on the brakes, but then jumped back on the accelerator, went down a gear and started accelerating again. I just didn't want to be there. And I didn't want to get back to look and see what happened to it. I was quite scared. I wasn't stopping at all, mate. The creature was very similar to the one he'd seen in Victoria, perhaps a bit smaller. It would have stood probably between 7 and 9 foot. Very hairy, really wide shoulders, massive arms. It would have weighed an easy 200 to 250 kilos. Its body was covered in reddish hair, apart from maybe its feet. I didn't notice how many toes, but I did see a big toe, that's all I remember. The tops of its hands were quite hairy, and it looked like it had 5 fingers and a thumb. It had the characteristics of a man, but its face had very ape-like features. It was quite long. I don't know what to compare it to, but it had opened its mouth and I know it had a really big set of teeth. I didn't know how many, but they were like fangs. All I saw was like a mouthful of fangs, like a piranha. And there was a lot of hair around the cheekbones and the eyes, but part of its forehead was exposed. It was a very dark tan. Its nose was similar to, say, a gorilla's, pushed back, so its nostrils weren't pointing down, they were pushed forward. Now Sam goes on to detail some additional characteristics and features of the creatures he saw. Firstly, he starts off by talking about its weird eyes. The eyes reflected a reddish colour, like the colour of a red moon, very similar to a cat's or fox's eyes, and they blinked sideways. Its eyes blinked sideways at me. I'm very positive that the eyelids closed from the side. I found it a bit surreal because the creature I saw during the first encounter also blinked sideways at me, and I immediately thought, no, this is just not normal. Only the eyelids of reptiles, crocodiles, open and close sideways. I thought, oh no, this can't be happening to me, not again. I didn't sleep very well for 2 to 3 months afterwards. It was just horrific. In view of what he said about the creature's extremely strange eyes and given the apparently astronomical odds against anyone experiencing 2 such similar encounters in locations 1,200 kilometers apart, we asked Sam if he thought there might be something uncanny about the Yowie phenomenon. I thought, it's something that can't be right. Seen the same type of creature twice within 3 weeks to a month. I actually started questioning myself and my actions, sort of. I started thinking, I'm very cautious now. I don't go out at night by myself anymore. When I'm hunting, I always go with at least 2 or 3 other people. Asked if he'd had any other strange experiences, he replied in the affirmative. Yeah, I have actually, mate. From a very young age, I've seen ghosts. I can always feel when there's something not quite right. Like a significant number of other Yowie witnesses, Sam has seen another type of Australian cryptid. Yes, I've seen what appeared to be a Tasmanian tiger, a thylacine, out the back of Singleton. It was probably about 10 or so years ago. All I remember was that it had a very faint black stripe on its back, and that it was bigger than a dingo, and its head very much resembled that of a Tasmanian tiger. I saw it from about 20 metres away running through the bush. I didn't bother pursuing it. When another notorious Australian cryptid, the mysterious, so far uncatchable Black Panther, was mentioned, Sam said that he'd also seen that one. His father had, in the Great Alpine National Park, near Lycola, Victoria, in the 1980s. Then Sam goes on to talk about his beliefs in Aboriginal mythology and lore and its connection to the creatures he apparently saw. My mother was a teacher at Woolgoolga on the New South Wales North Coast, and I grew up there. I'm a white Australian, but I kind of grew up in part in the Aboriginal culture. And part of that culture is that they are very much in touch with the land and with everything that goes on around them. The blackfellows always talked about a spirit called the Junjudee man. They said that it basically looked like a sort of an old man in a 6-year-old's body. I was working on a logging camp down in southeast Gippsland, and the bottom of the camp looked out on a rocky area, the Buchan Caves. We were having lunch near the caves, and there was something like a hole in the top of a rock, 70 to 50 meters away, and this thing popped its head up. At first I couldn't make out what it was. It jumped up onto the rock, and jumped up another 3. They were little man-shaped creatures, like people, but with hair all over their bodies. You couldn't make out whether they were talking to each other or not. They looked at us, and then they disappeared over the rock, heading away. And the bloke sitting next to me dropped his coffee. Sam has heard from indigenous people that the Junjudee man is quite an evil spirit. So is the Yowie. They say that those are things that you never go near or tamper with. I'm a contractor, a machinery operator in forestry. I'm qualified to do some specialty work in highly environmentally sensitive areas, so I've spent a lot of time out in the bush. I go everywhere and anywhere. I was doing some work up in a range near Toowoomba, and I was talking to some forestry heritage people, Aboriginal people, up there. This was my first Yowie encounter, and I was telling them about the Yowie encounter, and they just went white. They said, "It's very rare that we meet a white fella who's seen one. We fully believe in them, and they're very real, but for a white fella to see one, that's pretty amazing." After my second encounter, I went back and got touch with them again, and they all know that the land out the back of the Darling Downs, the Surat Basin, and unfortunately a lot of the land out there got destroyed because of gas exploration, a gas pipeline going to Gladstone, etc. They basically said, seeing a hairy man is like an awakening. If we know that there is one nearby, we don't wait around, we just leave the area. So in their culture, a Yowie sighting is considered a signal that something is wrong, you know, like in the environment, when frogs start dying in an area. Skeptics might dismiss Sam's report as the mother of all tall stories or as the product of a fantasy-prone mind, but we don't doubt his honesty or sanity. As he himself has acknowledged, however, seeing the same type of creature twice within 3 weeks is something that can't be right, I thought. Oh no, this can't be happening again. Not again. He also emphasized how surreal it was that the creature's eyes, both of the creature's eyes, blinked sideways at him. I immediately thought, no, this is just not normal. Only the eyelids of reptiles open and close sideways. Skeptics can chortle as much as they like, but in Sam's defense we should remind readers that unfeasible, sideways opening eyes have been described once before by Petra van der Moosik. who had close encounters with Yowies at Kirraville in New South Wales in the late 1990s. Given the many strange and interesting elements in his testimony, it seems highly likely that Sam's Yowie encounters were psychic experiences of some kind. Thanks for listening to the video, guys. Many witnesses report strange or unusual aspects of Yowies or Bigfoot, which lends to the theory that they are supernatural entities or that they possess supernatural abilities. This can be a controversial topic, with many people in the camp that Yowies or Bigfoot are strictly biological creatures with no abnormal abilities. Yet, there are hundreds of sighting reports like Sam's, which contest such notions. Anyway, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts in the comments section below. I read all comments and really enjoy engaging with you guys in this way. If you would like to support the channel and allow me to continue making content, please consider contributing to my Buy Me a Coffee page at buymeacoffee.com/thelongnight. The link will also be in the description of this video. A few dollars definitely goes a long way, and I'm really grateful for any kind of support I receive. Thank you so much for your continued viewership. And if this video brought you any kind of enjoyment at all, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you have not already done so. Although the night may be long, dark, and scary, we will make it through together to see the sun rise. As always, take care, campers. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.